Доброго ранку всім. Добрий ранок.
Good morning, everyone. We are starting our third day, and this day is dedicated to health outside of the healthcare system. And today we will be celebrating the Switzerland Day in the evening today. Since these are Swiss-Ukrainian projects, I suggest that we congratulate our colleagues from Switzerland with a round of applause. In 1291, according to history, that's 733 years ago, three Swiss cantons united to live together, to defend themselves, to do trade, and to flourish. And these were Urisch, Schwyz, and Unterwalden. Now Switzerland has 26 cantons. And I think there are people in this room who have heard something and know something about Switzerland. So I suggest the following format now. You can share one fact you've heard about Switzerland, or you think you know about Switzerland. Maybe you've been to Switzerland. Maybe you've seen something there. So just raise your hand. In Switzerland, they keep voting for something all the time. But this is information from my Swiss friend who says we have to vote for something every 2-3 months. Well, every 2-3 months, we have to study the matter and then vote for something. So this is the oldest democracy. I've been to Switzerland many times, and I really like how they organize everything. Last time I was participating in a competition there, well, on Geneva-like, and this was the best organization ever. Everything was very well thought through, a lot of support. It was so well thought through that you couldn't have done it better. So very good organization. In Switzerland, when people gather around a table, they don't have such critical problems like we do, but they keep saying like, this country is doomed, 3 languages, Bern doesn't understand Geneva. Well, I spent 1.5 years there. Yes? What I know about Switzerland, I visited the Olympic Movement Museum there, and a lot has been done by Switzerland to develop the Olympic movement and the Olympic Committee. I visited Switzerland several times, and the first time I went there, I was in Basel, and one member of our delegation forgot his bag with money and documents in a supermarket. In about 20 minutes, she saw that she left it, and then she came back, and everything was in place, nothing changed, and it was a very surprising experience for us. And then I was honored also to visit the Tropical and Public Health Institute. This is the institution which actually is very impressive. I would like to speak not about Switzerland only here, but about connections between Switzerland and Ukraine. I don't know whether you know it, but in Ukraine we have a settlement which was founded by Swiss colonists, and I think you've heard about it. It's Chabot. And in the Crimea, it's entitled, so connections between Switzerland and Ukraine will date back to many centuries ago. It's not like 30 years ago. It didn't start 30 years ago when the Swiss projects in Ukraine started. I haven't been to Switzerland yet, but the project which is implemented in our territorial community is one of the 30 communities within the Act for Health project. This is about people and a very well-structured approach. Thank you. Well, that's homeland of the Red Cross. That's Switzerland, by the way. Alps. Yes. A nice place. So congratulations on the Swiss National Day. So we know a lot about Switzerland, but I think there's also a lot to discover about it. And I would like to remind you once again about one of the important goals of our Swiss-Ukrainian school. That's shipping partnerships. Just as these three cantons became partners and have been ones for 733 years already, we believe that we have people here with great ideas, and these ideas can be implemented together. So one of the tools we have are boards like this one, and you can see it's written here, write your ideas. You may go to a session, to a lecture, to a workshop, hear something, get acquainted with someone, and come up with an idea. So I would like to encourage you to come up to the board during the break and write something. Like, for example, yesterday I participated in a workshop by Anna Toska, and I thought it would be very good if there was a documentary about Bohdan, the patient of Anna Toska, about his adaptation after trauma. I put it down here on the board, and I indicated that I'm Taras Hritsuk from Inchal Svita. Or another idea, a book club about mental health. It's a very general idea, but maybe someone will like it. So describe your idea very briefly, sign your name, and maybe someone will get interested and indicate +1 or +2, but not just +1 or +2, but indicate your names. And tomorrow, we will have more space to discuss these ideas in more detail. So this is one of the tools we have. There's another one. We have a camera for mental pictures. And you may have seen the wall there, because these pictures are put up on that wall. So how does it work? Turn it on. There's just one button. You can take it at reception. There's a film there. The key concept is you cannot take a picture of yourself only. You need to find someone else, someone who's close to you in terms of ideas or other interests. So you take a picture, and the picture will be put up on the wall. So let me show you how it works. Our next panel will soon take place, and I would like to take a picture with the speakers of the next panel. So they are all here. And I would like to invite to our improvised stage Daria Ozarna, medical journalist, a biologist, the advocate of healthy lifestyle, Bohdana Bezchasna, architect and urbanist, and Alexander Makarenko, an architect. So they will be talking about health and environment. And I'm passing the mics to you. Thank you. We had presentations, so could you please put them up on the screen? And to begin with, I would like to ask you, how did you like the weather yesterday? Wasn't it hot? Did you go outside? Did you go to for a walk in the evening? Wasn't it cold? No. So my first question is, how do you think, how did it happen so that yesterday it was 32 during the day, and now these are the hottest days, the dog days of this year, where, well, we have this warmth of the summer solstice, but it's quite cold in the evening, and you even think about putting up a jacket. How does Truskavets do that? It's because mountains are close, okay, yes, trees, a lot of water. Have you seen the big park here? And they don't have much asphalt and stones there, and there's a lot of grass. So this is what lets them actually cool down the air here. So this is a kind of a national air conditioner. So today we will be talking about the environmental factors, how they impact our health, and how we can have influence on them, how to make the good things, make more of the good things and less of the bad things. So we'll be talking about temperature, water, air, landscape, and many other things. So you can have a look at who I am. So I have a dream to rebuild the building in the kill zone in Zaporizhia, and to rebuild it using clay, 3D printer, and for it to have a system of natural cooling where hot air would be escaping in summer, there would be warm floor in winter, and so that different birds and insects could find home there as well, and I would live there as a part of that nature. But the environmental factors you can see highlighted in the color. I'm surprised the presentation doesn't fit the screen. So noise, landscape, ultraviolet, these are the factors which impact on us, and we can measure this impact by looking at the genetic markers. We may have only different diet and time of birth during the year, but the genes are active in a different way. It's like taking a text and highlighting some important things with a marker, but ignoring the rest. So we will be talking about the things which are shown in blue color here. Now, the quality of water, fortunately, is not that relevant for peaceful, unoccupied territories in Ukraine, but that's very topical for the area of hostility, for Mykolaiv, Kherson, for the south of Ukraine, for southern and Asian countries, and there are diseases which may be connected with the quality of water, like intestinal infections, cholera. So all those infections we were afraid of after the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. When these diseases, people, for example, in the Nordic countries, they may lack vitamin D, and as the result, they may suffer from rickets. And yesterday we had a very good discussion about the fact that we have to take into account the ethnic origin and race when we are planning some health-related measures. So speaking about the climate change, how often do you think about climate change? I think about it quite frequently. I think about them often because I know a lot about it. And climate change has impact on basically everything. And it doesn't mean that we will have tropical climate in Ukraine, everything will be green, and we will not have to change car wheels for winter. No, but it means that we might have malaria in Ukraine, we will have soil erosion. If we, destroy boglands, if we log forests to plant some crops, and we will have dust storms. So we have diesel generators and then dust storms. And then pollution of the air impacts everything, not only our lungs. Unfortunately, we cannot fix it by technological solutions only. That will be not enough for all of us. And the changes are so rapid that we are trying to adapt, but with certain sacrifice. When we speak about some changes, about climate change, about the weather, on the one hand, we need to adapt very quickly, but on the other hand, we need to decrease that negative impact. So imagine you've been evolving for hundreds of thousands of years to reach the state you're in right now, but something changes drastically tomorrow. Like you move, the climate is different, and you cannot get used to that within one generation. All these previous evolutionary adaptations were well, at the cost of the death, migration. So this was a bloody and tragic story. And secondly, we cannot well, switch off the sun or the wind. It doesn't work even in the fairy tales. It worked only with the chosen ones in the Old Testament. But we have to adapt to use the technologies, but we're advised to have water with us when it's hot and avoid open areas. That's great, but there are people who have to work outside. There are people who are fighting outside. They cannot avoid this.
There is another suggestion. Let's have some quotas for CO2 emissions. And then Trump comes and says that, I don't want to be part of this deal. I'm not interested in this game. And of course, these individual requests, petitions, they will not help us here. That is why the measures that we take, it's really important that they are effective when we implement them. If I take a hat, use sunscreen, and then I use a ski suit when I want to go skiing in winter, I can do that, and I can give this recommendation to my family. But when I hear this from the state that you need to get some fuel resources and this and that, and what about some safety issues of keeping all of that? However, to continue the topic of collaboration and the impact on the environment and our health, we can rely on communities. And communities are not only about these urban and rural areas. That could be a condominium, an association of homeowners, or that could be any union of like-minded people. It could also be an NGO, a union when people want to have some joint activities. The creation of the register of lonely people, that was also one of such examples when lonely elderly people died in France because of the heat. And there was a similar situation in Ukraine in winter when elderly people died because it was so cold. They stayed in their apartments. Then it's really important to have some places where it feels cooler, such as museums, some other spaces with thick walls where you can feel better because the temperature is lower. And we know that with coffee shops, they cannot house all the people, but libraries could be a very good solution, and we will have a discussion about that as well. This is also a European practice. Also, there was a London case. It's not allowed there to use food there and to advertise food. Also, when it comes to these aisles where it feels less hot, different landscaping, urban greening solutions. There are many colleagues involved in these practices. It's important to heed advice of experts, to ask for recommendations, for communities to be active. That was quite a long introduction, but now I would like to focus on some specific numbers and reasons. So we had a heat wave at the end of June in Europe. It resulted in premature deaths, and mostly these were lonely people, the elderly population who suffered from that. And of course, in Europe, generally speaking, the elderly population is of an older age as compared to Ukraine. So if it's 75 for France, then for us, this critical age will be 65, and we have a significant number of people like that. So they even lack space in morgues. This is how bad the situation was. And this is something unprecedented. We can see these temperature records, and it is directly related to human activities and technologies. It's not about the cycle of temperature going up and going down. It's about this impact that people have on the planet. We know that the future of the world is unpredictable and very dynamic. And of course, the solution would be to use AC. Just go to your office and stay there if you feel hot. But there are so many people who do not have AC, and there are many reasons why they do not have it. There are some people who work in open air, and they are the only ones to do this type of job. That's why they need to be there. Also, those countries where we actually have rule of law, where we have construction norms upheld, you cannot have an air conditioner installed on a historical building. That is why AC is not a solution, especially given the fact that we can have power cuts. We can have ACs, but what if they do not work? Also, we understand that climate change is a global issue. It's not about us feeling too hot or too cold. It's about epidemic, it's about hunger, poverty, which leads to migration. And climatic migration is already happening. People will migrate to those places where they can survive. And that would be good if we do not do that and that we are not among such migrants. And of course, regarding heat, the way we feel depends on a range of different factors: the influence of wind, greenery, grass on our streets, also how sun rays are reflected and absorbed, how heat can be absorbed. It really helps us to tolerate heat better and to adapt. We know the recommendation: white clothes, natural fabric, natural materials. Do everything that is good, do not do everything that is not good. These are the recommendations of the public health center. We know that. Yes, that's only logical, but it's not going to stop climate change. And this is what we do in urban areas. There are scientific journals, there are communities where we have different measurements taking about the impact of people. We have urbanists, we have architects involved in these activities to anticipate the adaptation of cities to climate change, and it also relates to us. When it feels very hot, when we have a heat wave, why do people die? And actually, this is a question to you as healthcare professionals. What is the type of support that is sought? Yes, we understand that very often people suffer from heat strokes. Heat exhaustion is another reason. When you lose fluids, your blood gets really thick. It leads to strokes and other conditions. Yes, you're absolutely right. So all chronic diseases get worse because electrolyte balance gets worse, our behavior changes, also mental health disorders. The situation gets worse here, so it means that the situation is very likely to be isolated. People stay at home. It is some forced isolation and is such a risk for both physical and mental health. In terms of the environment, of course, some public spaces where we are surrounded by people It's really important for us. We are social animals as people, but we know that when it gets too hot or too cold and we are isolated at home, it mounts the risks. And some summer house is not an answer to this problem, because we really need to have some parks and gardens. When you live in a city, we understand that the temperature grows rapidly because of the environment. So we feel really hot, and it will be plus 27, not the same way as it feels in Truskavas because of the natural ambience. When back in the 80s in Zaporizhia, you could actually touch the air. This is how it felt, because I still remember the smell of sulfur and the way it felt for all of us. We understand that it has an impact on our respiratory system, diabetes. Also, it's connected to different neurodegenerative changes, allergies, which manifest in an adult age. We have many studies like that. We understand that the quality of air is critical. It might seem that it's enough to modernize all production facilities. We understand that many of them are in China now. And of course, it does harm to their system, ecosystem. Well, tigers suffer a lot, and we feel sorry, of course, but we still have production in China. Also, the winds flowing in Zaporizhia, there is a manufacturing area. The wind would go to the city because that was logistically more convenient for transportation of coal. But of course, we can think of different solutions how we can protect ourselves. We can have respirator masks and buy them in large quantities, but this is not going to resolve a problem. We understand that we can have very many programs, active parks, healthy cities, but if air quality is bad, then it actually downplays the effect of these programs. Also, smokers, we understand that it's not easy for them to quit, but poor air quality exacerbates their condition, can lead also to chronic obstructive lung disease. And yes, it seems to me that there is someone who works with this medical condition. Then the next issue, noise and noise pollution. Of course, when we have air raid alerts, when we have the sound of explosions, then we have production sound. And it might seem that these sounds are quite harmless when we remove the equipment and many other things, but we know that we have increased sensory load, and that could be a last straw for us. We could be extremely resilient and we can feel resourceful to deal with the difficulties, but then when it gets too hot, it smells bad. You can hear the sound of transport, and then you feel really exhausted. It's cognitive exhaustion, and then you add sound pollution to that. I think that among your patients, you also have patients who suffer from migraines. So when you have too much sound, when you have also different colors around them, especially those which are used for ads in shopping malls, people will suffer from fits of migraines, and they don't really know what to do, or it's not easy for them to continue working. In bigger cities, there are professional neurologists, but in smaller settlements, communities, people don't even know that they need to go and see a doctor if they suffer from migraines. Urban birds also. Yesterday we discussed the topic of planetary health and swallows. Yes, I also mentioned them. It's been 13 years of war already, and does it really make sense to think about birds or swallows? But planetary health also relies on well-being of all other creatures. When we have bird watching, when we have different apps used for analysis of bird singing, well, it's recommended by psychologists, psychotherapists. This is a free intervention in the house to reduce anxiety, and it's been proven to be efficacious. So when you listen to birds in cities, as we know it from Lina Kostenko's poetry, it is such a great contribution to our mental resilience. That is why it's really nice to choose those routes when it doesn't feel too noisy. If you want to go jogging, you will also select a nice, quiet, cool route. Those people, well, motorcycle riders who really love riding at night, making the same sound as shahids, but they are not being stopped by the law enforcement, and it's not easy to counter this problem. We understand that this is also something that police and society has to react to. It's important that we have oversight, and if people break some regulations, we need to take measures for those people not to do that, because the legislation is not effective. If you want to reduce the noise, it's not you looking out of the window as throwing a brick at a motorcycle rider or just cursing the people who are too loud. It's not going to help us. It can do some harm to us, but we need to have a system of traffic monitoring and quick response to what they do. Light is another important facet here. If it is natural or artificial, we know that these are very powerful indicators. They also make a difference. It's important for our sleep, anxiety levels, how we tolerate colder seasons. But in Ukraine, even if they're not too cold, they will be really dark. Mid-October, end of March, that's the period. So maybe I'm not interesting enough because I can feel that you are loud. Light pollution. How can we deal with that? It could be something that we can do individually. We can buy a sleep mask, and we know that light can be attractive for public spaces. It's about safety. It's about the places where people want to be and where they feel safe and calm. We have great examples of Ukrainian solutions. Uspensk Square in Dnipro. It was designed with great light solutions. On the other hand, if you went to the Stroskovets Park, they have neutral light, and in the worst case scenario, it is this very cold blue light, which is not good for your sleep. It's the same as with your smartphones. It's like you being in a morgue. Probably you don't get this feeling in a park, but if it is a residential area and there is asphalt and because it's very cold light, you do not really feel comfortable. You have this feeling that something might go wrong. The way we plan light solutions really defines how people sleep, whether there will be some additional reasons for them to have sleep issues. Can we also prevent seasonal affective disorder, bright light in the morning, which is important, and that we do not bring any additional triggers for those people who are a vulnerable group because they suffer from migraines and epilepsy. Landscaping, we know that it's really important for us to have physical activities, that when we age, we need more of that. We know that in the Netherlands, people use bicycles to go to work, and it's great how it works there. the level of cardiovascular diseases is lower there, and we can have an assumption it's great. Everyone, let's buy a bicycle and let's use them to go to work because we know that we need to pay more for public transport now. But actually, in the Netherlands, they don't have extremely hot and cold temperatures. That is why you can use these bicycles around the year. You can buy one jumper and you will be fine. They don't really have highlands because even in the Rivne region, you will have these fluctuations of the landscape. And you can also wear the same clothes to work, the same that you used for commuting. But for this is the country which was rebuilt in the New World. The infrastructure allows to use bicycles and to stay alive, right? But in Ukraine, we need to have physical barriers to separate pedestrians, to separate cyclists, scooters users, public transportations, private transport users. Then we know that we will have hormones that will let us know that you're still young, you don't need to accumulate fat, your muscles are strong. We don't really need to have a critical deficit of calories to be in shape. That is why people in mountainous areas, well, relatively speaking, it's easier for them because of the natural landscape, and the only way to reach some place is to go on foot.
But when we don't like the path, when it's very hot and there's no toilet on the way, and you cannot pass this road with a stroller or on a wheelchair or on a bike, nobody will go there. It will be a kind of a dead zone. You may invest into it, but it's not accessible. And what is more, the places which are not accessible, where you cannot get in, the places which are dangerous, where you don't have the handrails which will help you go down if it's slippery or something that increases the threat of a trauma. So spaces like that cannot be considered as inspiring for people and inspiring them to be physically active. A space maybe multifunctional where you can jog, ride a bicycle, read a book, work at your laptop, it should be accessible for people in wheelchairs, parents with children in strollers. It shouldn't will cause frustration, and people should be feeling safe there. And also the gender element should be there. There have to be WCs, places where you can go with a child if you need to change a diaper, and it shouldn't be only for women only. Men should also be able to find a place to change a diaper for a child there. And just to conclude a little bit about greenery in the cities, I will then pass the floor to my colleagues. But we have quite good algorithms which let us refuse from the plants which may cause problems and give green light to those plants which do not cause these problems, to have less pollen, to have less stromas, fewer stromas. So we can plant maples, apple trees, the plants which are safe for us, which can grow very well. The Canadian maple grows very well in Ukraine, and we can also plant the hedges with noise isolation, which will be collecting the dust. All this will be filtered through the hedge. We really lack this along the roads. And then ambrosia, which has a lot of pollen, which is distributed in waves. This ragweed, it has to be pulled out, not just mown. And this has to be done by the community, not some just municipal workers. If I pluck out one ragweed bush every day when I go for a walk with my dog, and other dog owners do the same, then we will probably eliminate it in an area there. And you can do it in a park, and it's okay for me, and it will be good for other people because there will be no rugby there. So this is something the community can do. And I should draw the example of subway, which has good navigation thanks to agents of change who developed it so that with that you can commute without a significant cognitive load. And this is the example of Kyiv Psychiatric Hospital. You come there and you understand this is the right place for me. You cannot get around there at all. And even if we find the right door, there's no handle so that you can open the door to enter. And then a doctor comes up, she takes out this handle from the pocket of her robe and opens the door. The navigation is absent in Kyiv hospitals. It's absent in the cities. I don't know where to go. So when I'm okay, I see it as an adventure. When I'm in a hurry and I had a difficult night before that, I can just sit down and burst out crying. I'm exaggerating a bit, but, well, that's an emotional reaction. Well, so navigation in the city is also about the environment. It's also about the landscape. And this is what the community should demand from the hospitals, for example, which belonged to the municipality because they are municipal enterprises. I wrote a letter to Pavlivka after I visited for the first time, and I wrote that there's no navigation. There are not enough stuff there. They don't even know the abbreviations they have. And lastly, neurodiversity. I have it, my son has it, my mom has it. My mom and I learned about it quite late in life. My son learned about it much earlier, and neurodiverse people are sensitive to sounds, to smells, and all this visual advertising actually may cause a meltdown. This is a historical state when people say, well, make your child calm down, but the mother cannot because she would like to be calmed down as well. And the experience we're now living through is definitely not positive or constructive, and it's not only neurodivergent people who need unified visual and audio comfort and the ability to get back to norm. So this is not something that is specific only for a group of people who, as they say, well, decided they are neurodivergent. No, that's not like that, and we need to build the cities, the places which are comfortable for different people, and that would help us adapt and exist as a community. And my main conclusion is that urban environment should be decided upon not by Klitschko mayor or the mayor of Yaramcha town. It cannot be designed by some specific people. It has to be a multidisciplinary team, including architects who have learned and studied to work with it professionally. It should include also the doctors of different specializations, people with different needs, the needs which are more than just basic needs and which need some specific navigation here. We need to take it into account. If some people even joke that if the center of the city of Kyiv is destroyed, that's very sad, but that's not a big problem because it's a chance to rebuild it in a nice way. So I hope that we will be rebuilding in a smart and nice way. And I'm passing the floor to my colleagues. Thank you, Darka. And we will now do some exercise before I pass the floor to other colleagues of ours. So please show our video on the screen. You know what to do. You can do it seated or you can get up, whatever works for you. Hello, it's time to move dried fruit. Figs are the power. The diets give you energy. Dried apricots are for the intellect. Prunes for detox. Vitamins instead of sugar. You're number one today. Dried fruit are super taste. Figs give you power, hands up. Dates give you energy. Dried apricots are a bright trend for your intellect. Dance, sing, turn. Prunes are for detox, vitamins instead of sugar. You're number one today. Dried fruit give you super taste. Figs give you power, hands up. Dates give you energy. Dried apricots are a bright trend for your intellect. Sing, dance, turn around. Prunes offer detox, vitamins instead of sugar. You're number one today. Dried fruit offer super taste. Let it be so. This was an advertisement of dried fruit.
Працює? А можна ви
Could you please share my presentation? And while the presentation is prepared, I would like to introduce myself, but my name is Bohdana, and I wanted to say something about psychiatry. Together with the member of the Parliament of Ukraine, within the state subvention, we made an admissions department, and it wasn't just about navigation. It was very bad. When we entered the building, we thought it wasn't functioning because they had no floor, they had problems with heating, simply no floor. And there were some narrow aisles there, and from this admissions room, you had to pass through the door. Well, actually, the door lay on the floor, and you had to walk over it. It was so surrealistic. We didn't even understand whether this place works or not. And thanks to the subvention, we changed it because unfortunately nobody paid attention to the psychiatric hospital, because this is not a place where you can, well, actually organize an official opening with a red ribbon, because this is what Klitschko likes doing, but the psychiatric hospital is not some great PR for him. And now this admissions department works. It looks very nice. Unfortunately, we didn't get to navigation, but I do agree that this is also a necessary thing. But this is also about engagement. As an architect, I was involved into the process, although we understand that a lot of overhauls are done without the involvement of architects, without the supervision by an architect. But because we got involved into this project, and we showed how the planning process should take place. That made all the difference, because the admissions department is not just this room, it's also the ramp, it's the ability to, well, come with a vehicle close to the entrance. And so this is also about the signs outside, because the ambulance workers and people outside have to see where this entrance is, because there are 26 buildings on the territory, so you need to be able to find your way around it. And after that, the next buildings were then also according to that principle. They didn't paint the wall purple or light blue anymore. We were trying to make it all neutral. And thanks to the fact that they engaged the experts, the spaces were transformed, because the spaces are created for people. And it should be done by experts, and not just take into account what the Director General or other management of the hospital likes or dislikes. They also made a recovery garden which functions, and the doctors and the patients, they have many servicemen there. So they come there, and there are some quiet spaces where they can recover mentally. My name is Bohdana. I'm an architect by education. I'm an urban planner, and I'm also an expert in engagement, and I'm helping communities with strategic and planning documents, with strategic sessions and different kinds of workshops. Good morning once again. I'm Alexander Makarenko. I'm also an architect by education. And in the last years, because of the war, I've been working on recovery of communities. Before that, I was dealing with spatial planning mainly for many years. And our presentation now will be dedicated not to the issues of how architectural space impacts human health, but to how certain solutions, ideas, and mechanisms can make this urban space more healthy and stimulate people to lead a more healthy lifestyle. So let us talk about that. This slide is a bit complicated, too much information here, but to put it briefly, there are several different levels of where and how to work with the space. The most global level, this is the planning structure. So this may be at the level of the country, of a region, of an oblast, of a city or a district. So we work with some large-scale planning solutions. A more compact one is the level of landscaping, where we talk about the streets, parks, squares, courtyards, and so on. And the third aspect, which is connected with that, this is shaping practices, what people do, how they live in this space. And all these things, all these stages, all these levels have to be accompanied by such an element as engagement, because without engagement, it will not be working as it should be working. And if it is considered as if it is considered comprehensively, it has impact on human health, and human health has impact on the economy of the community, no matter what size community we're talking about here. It impacts on how much money is spent on the healthcare system, how long people live, how long people work. So this is our view on how to work with the space. We believe you shouldn't explain to people how to lead a healthy lifestyle. You should encourage them to lead a healthy lifestyle through the environment. And this can be done on the level of everyday needs and everyday routes when we have to go to a shop, when we use public transport, or generally the transport infrastructure, and so on, when we commute to work, for example. An important moment. These are some hubs where people can meet, socialize, which could also improve their mental state and make their life more interesting. What concerns engagement? At the level of the planning infrastructure, engagement is a mandatory part of the urban planning documents on the national level, on the regional level, and also on the local level, which is closer to us. This may be a comprehensive plan of spatial development of a community, which has to be presented at a public hearing. There has to be a master plan, also detailed territorial plans, and also zoning plans. In addition to public hearings, which are conducted according to certain procedures, the comprehensive plan also includes a feasibility study, which requires having strategic sessions to work on this document, and that is an important component of urban planning documents and an important component. And this is also very important for European integration because this was the requirement to planning, to democratic participation. That's development and implementation of the law and public consultation. It's been signed by the president and will come into force after the war is over. And this was the requirement in the process of our European integration to include different stakeholders to development and planning of different kinds of documents at different levels.
Another important point is that at this level, it is mandatory to have public discussion, to have public hearings, because then people discuss landscaping of territory where it's not compulsory. We also have some other binding documents at the local level, comprehensive spatial plans, zoning. We also have some informal documentation. This is the concept of integrated development. Here we also have developed plans and steps. There we also have compulsory stages, including public hearings at different levels. We also have a program for comprehensive recovery. It is another example of informal document, but in one of the resolutions you will also find information that it is a must to have a public hearing, to have a discussion. You don't have the description of the procedures, however, is important when you draft the documentation. If something is not mandatory, it does not mean that you do not do that, yes? Because you understand that any forms of engagement are much better than having no engagement. Overall, we would like to demonstrate several cases how you can work with space. Some of them are part of Ukrainian experience, Ukrainian projects and ideas. Some of them are international ones. I would like to share with you this case. It might seem strange, but still it's extremely interesting. This is the UK National Food Path Network. So in 1949, they adopted a law when people lived in cities where there was a lot of manufacturing and poor air quality. Historically, they have a lot of private land in the UK. When people do not have access to this land, there was a conflict between the state and the public. That is why they made the landowners to give access to the territories. This is how, at the state level, through legislation, through the decisions, not because somebody decided to establish a network of footpath, but it resulted in a creation of the network. You can see a map. This is an e-tool. This is an app that you can use, OS Maps. It collected loads of information about the way people use this network. When you have national parks, you can see this intense color on the map. It unites many people who travel. These are pedestrians, cyclists, runners, horse riders. There are many options how to put it into practice. And of course, it affects the quality of life, how physically active you are, how healthy you are. On top of that, people spend a lot of time outdoors. So this is a very good example. You didn't build anything, but there is some responsibility that you have at all levels of the municipality. Of course, it's not impeccable because, well, not all footpaths are functional. They could be blocked, but you still find a solution and people actively use these footpaths. This is a Ukrainian example. The scale here is much smaller. However, I really wanted to showcase it as well. This is an illustration of what is important when we want to have new quality of the space. It's important to draw on the resources that we have there. This is Makariv territorial community in early years of the war. It sounds really strange when I say early years of the war, but well, nevertheless, when this settlement was deoccupied, people started thinking, how do we recover? How do we rebuild? What is the path that we take? We participated in the development of an informal document, the concept for the restoration and development of Makariv territorial community. We received a grant, and then we started thinking in what direction do we want to move. It's not only about restoring and rebuilding what the Russian tanks destroyed. We need to think ahead and to think about the future and development of this community. When I was thinking about the tourist part, I discovered that there is the international cyclist network, and it goes through this community. When we had discussions with locals about that was part of the engagement, we've also realized that people have a need to go from one village to another village. So they live in one village, but they have some business in another village. So how do you reach it? It means that you need to use a highway, actually, the road infrastructure, but you just walk to another village. That's why their request was to have some better infrastructure, because the road infrastructure was meant for cars only. That is why we decided to connect the dots, and we thought about having a general route which would actually work quite well. If you take a look at the upper part, you will see that there is a train station there. Those people from Kyiv who like riding a bicycle, usually these are groups of people, they leave Kyiv and they embark on a journey, but it's very easy because they have a small train station. You can take your bike with you, and then there are many natural reserves. There are nice territories where you can enjoy riding a bicycle. But for that, you need to have navigation. You need to have some place where you have access to drinking water. If people want to spend not 1 day or 2 days, then you will also need some camping facilities. In the territory, there is always some resource which is undervalued, which is underestimated. You can exploit these resources. following an idea or a concept, and that could be a very good solution for both the locals as well as some broader development of this community. This is another case. It concerns Kyiv. There are several theories which describe how we assess the benefits, the gains from something. If I want to take a walk in the park, I like having a stroll in the park, but to reach the park, I need to use subway. And then I start thinking, so how much is it going to cost? But it's not only about the financial dimension, but it's also about time that I need to spend, how convenient it is for me to reach subway, to leave it. Then you try to assess the entire process. So it's always about some benefits that you will get, right? So I will get some rest, I will have fun, I will talk to other people, I will see something beautiful. And then you try to understand what are the disadvantages, how comfortable it is, do they have a restroom there? And then you have a final value. This is an example of pedestrian and bicycle network along the Dnipro River. Here you can see the green directions. This is where you can walk or ride. This is part of the green space or some waterfront, and the dotted line, this is already the urban space when you need to move alongside vehicles. Then there are two islands, Hydro Park. It's different, it's separated from the left bank and Trukhanov Island. Well, those of you who have been to Kyiv or are from Kyiv, you definitely know what I mean. And there is another part. That is why we were thinking that, yes, I will reach Ursanivka, and then that's everything. That's the final stop, because then there is the bridge, and that is an obstacle. It's more taxing for me. There was a very small intervention that turned out to be a solution. We know that the mayor, Klitschko, loves pedestrian bridges, so we would really need to have two pedestrian bridges more, and then we will have an integrated, a shared, joint integrated space, and that will give a much better result at the end of the day than when we have these separate routes. This is the Potons Bridge. This is how you can reach this part of the city from one riverbank to another one, and on the right you see how it could be. I hope that everyone agrees with me that the picture that you see to your right looks more appealing. Yes, yes, this is just an illustration. We don't have these bridges, no. Well, yes, the Potons Bridge is still there. Yes, absolutely. But the second one, we don't have it, and it's also about the quality of the bridge. We really need to dream about better solutions. And another thing I would like to emphasize, that even in times of war, when we have missile attacks, in the morning early, you see how many people are there. They want to take a walk, they need to go to work, they use the infrastructure. However, if you add to this infrastructure, it could be an alternative route. Then, because I am from this part, and I used to work in the center. I was working for 12 hours. That's why I used a bicycle. It was important for me to have some physical activity, and that is why if you have this bridge added, it will be such a great solution. And this is a long route of 25 kilometers. This is a great distance to cover. Yes, I know that we are pressed for time already, but I will try to be concise. This is another example. You can find this green route inside different neighborhoods. You can connect these patches, and then we will have an integral green network. that was Shastka, and here you can see super blocks of Barcelona, because you connect smaller blocks and then it leads to a different infrastructural system. That's another example. This is when we discuss the strategy. Engagement is extremely important. Having polls conducted, when we discussed it with many locals, they said that they don't have any place for socialization, to take a walk, to have experience exchange, to just meet their family, their neighbors, to have celebrations of their birthdays. And then we realized that there was a railway alongside the bank. That's why you cannot really have any infrastructure. Also, you have the Danube river there, and waters go high, so this is a territory prone to flooding. That is why you cannot really have the waterfront there. Also, people were really complaining that they didn't have this space. We were mapping during our workshops together with community, where would you want to have this space? They didn't even consider Balanashti area where they have beam. It could be this green territory with recreational potential. Before this idea was brought up, they consider it to be a very problematic area. If you take a look at the map, you will see that it divides the city. There are 3 bridges crossing this area, and people didn't see it as an option. But there is a small, nice park. There is some green area and another green space there near this territory. And thanks to us connecting these spaces, it was possible for us to suggest that we consider this huge territory, and this is a recreation territory, which is something that could be a zone for the city, which unites these spaces to help you meet the need that you have for socialization, for exercising, to have different routes, pedestrian routes, cycling routes, and to have all of that in this territory. We added this project to the development strategy, so the project has been making some progress. It's important for us to be ambitious, of course, but to take small steps in the right directions. In architecture, we call them elements of tactical urbanism, to have the start, to have some small spaces, and then it will lead to greater changes. I know that we don't have much time left, but I still wanted to show you how from this small green space in Kyiv, how from one zone we started the development of the territory in Obolon neighborhood. In 2014, after the Revolution of Dignity, we had some changes in our mindset. We realized that we can make a difference, that we can be part of the change. Natalka Park, do you know about this park in Obolon? Yes. And before that, it was a territory where there was literally nothing. There was an extremely old building, almost 100-year-old, and there are actually 2 different buildings, some facilities. There was nothing happening in that territory. It was considered to be dangerous. There was no light, no roads, no paths. When I was a kid, that was a taboo territory because there were some meetings held there of gangs we would never go there as children. There, it was considered to be extremely dangerous. Then the residential block was erected, but still, even 2015, that territory was of no use. It was dead space. An important thing is that when there are no people visiting some spaces, they are considered to be dead spaces. Through engagement of citizens, experts, different stakeholders, well, we didn't have public consultations back then, but we started with having some peaceful gatherings. We had a map from Mosaic. We didn't have methodological recommendations or guidelines on how to engage people, but we really wanted the space to be a good space, because we remember that back in Yanukovych's times there was a project to have some golden fountains and sequoias and all of that, and people did not find this idea attractive. Through conducting polls, conducting surveys, urban surveys, holding different workshops, we came to the conclusion what we would want to have in this territory. This is how it looks now. Natalka Park, I highly recommend you to visit if you have not visited it yet. And we can see that everything is adapted to the needs of the users. They had one football pitch. It was extremely popular among locals. Then we added another football pitch. So the planning is evolving, and we always have the citizens engaged, experts engaged. I always write the justification part. Why do we need this pitch? Why do we need to have this path to present it to local authorities? We also have warm lighting, because before that they planned to have 9-meter pillars with a different type of lighting, but this is a residential area. That's why we need to take it into consideration. We need to have warm kind of lighting there, and it's an extremely beautiful park. It's very cozy and nice at night. The lights are off.
And it doesn't impact on the residents of the nearby buildings. This is the space where this communication keeps taking place, and it takes place all the time. There are many sports communities in Obolon now. They do yoga, they do basketball, they are socializing, they play team games, they have a schedule of who's playing when and with whom. So there are many sports communities there right now. Children for whom we planned the playgrounds have grown up now, and we are now thinking about the creation of a space that would be growing together with a child, because we have figured out that the children who we build habitats with, they are not using the space anymore just because they have physically grown up, but they still want to go to the park because these are local residents and they have friends here. So this is important, and we're thinking of how to create a space that would grow together with children. And this is also about engagement. We know that according to the current legislation, the young people, this is 14 plus. So these spaces have to include spaces for communication for young people. And now, as far as I know, we have spaces like 12 plus and 18 plus, but these 6 years in between are nowhere. And the authorities are now starting to communicate with the residents. We are reconsidering the space to try and create something where, which will turn into a space where these young people can grow. Because when we say a playground, this is a very limiting description because we're thinking about children only. We're talking not about playground, we are talking about child space. This is the space where children can come with their parents, grandparents, nannies, siblings. And then this space becomes more universal, and we have to remember about that as well. It's important that Natalka Park has become a part of the green recreational space. During a strategic session at Obolon district, we dreamt about a walking route there. And in 2022, this route actually appeared there. So you need planning, strategic planning to achieve your dream. You need to have a vision. But for local changes to take place, you will need to cut this elephant into pieces and eat it piece by piece. But I would like to stress once again that no space remains just an equipped space if it has its users. But we will only have the users if we plan this space together with the expert community and with the groups of stakeholders who will be using this space. And this example of the Natalka Park, where there are quiet spaces, where there are spaces for sports, for children, and everyone can find a space for them depending on their mood today, because I may be willing to sit near the water today. Tomorrow I will be jogging around the park, and the day after tomorrow I will go for a walk with my child. And what is important here, we wanted to tell you more, but we don't have enough time. We wanted to explain how we created the spaces within Act for Health processes, and it was very important when the communities installed some equipment, and we came, like for example, a sports ground which doesn't work, and well, they came there and they asked, why don't you use the space? And they said, well, this is for elderly people. We keep it here. We don't want it. And we asked it, what is interesting? And by not creating new space, by adding some elements to the space, shaping the space that would take into account the needs of other age groups, we create the space that is active, and the space is now actively used by young people, elderly people. We created the waiting areas. So any example we take there, the main idea is engagement, and it's important not only when we have some projects and we show that, look, these are some public hearings and so on. It's important to engage people at the early stages, to research the space, to conduct a survey, to understand what practices are taking place in this space. And thanks to that, we create these healthy spaces which shape not only healthy communities, but also or healthy groups. This is just the spaces for socialization, for collaboration, for networking. And these are the spaces where people will come up with some dreams about something better and then turn these dreams into reality. I would like to thank Bogdana and Alexander. Let us give them another round of applause. So we still have just a couple of minutes until the break. So I suggest doing the following. So we can collect short comments and maybe questions, having them all together. Some of them will be responded, and the others will be for discussions during the break. I have a comment and a question at the same time. I'm from Kyiv, and I would like to thank for the presentation of Natalka Park. I actually commute from another part of the city to go for a walk there, so this is a comment. This is to say that this is a place where people come to relax, to go for a walk with their dog, to have a date, to do sports, to interact with nature. And there are so many birds there. There are swans, ducks, and the ducks are very happy. People are feeding them. So there's a concentration of everything there, and you really will recover and get energized when you go there. So this is a comment and a question at the same time. How did it happen? So, well, I live in Tryashina district, and actually I never thought I would be living there, but I'm surprised that it's only since 2015 that some changes in the organization of greenery and landscaping have been taking place, and people really need these spaces. So I was always surprised that there are no trees there, and they started planting the trees only now, although I've been living there for 16 years already. The same goes about Natalka Park. So what causes these changes, although the city is very old? Just a second. Do we have any other comments? Okay, we'll gather them, and you please don't forget what you would like to respond to that. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for raising this topic. And my comment or reflection is that you have spoke about the environmental factors which may have a negative impact on health. Communities are now working on their strategies of development. They do it in a different way. Then it goes to the strategic environmental assessment. The experts consider that, provide recommendations. Not all recommendations are taken into account. I think that each community needs a kind of a leaflet which would indicate what should absolutely be taken into account when preparing the strategy of their development. I would like to add to what Natalia said on behalf of the communities. Thank you. Daria, Bogdana, Alexander, thank you very much. As a representative of the community, I now understand that we are doing the right thing. We are now in the process of development of the project, an eco path along the river, and we had 3 different projects. So the residents of the community voted for it, and they chose it because this is the path which people usually use to get from A to B, and there are birds and trees and grass and water. And of course, Kyiv and Postomad are of very different scales, but I saw it works, so thank you very much. And that's the last comment/question. It's more of a reflection. I would like to thank our speakers for their presentations and for the explanations, and I would like to say that I'm from Kropyvnytsky. So I would like to ask you, could you come to us and help our authorities? I hope I'm not the only one who would really like to make our city better. I'm knocking on all the doors, so please come to me and help me knock on these doors, because I think they planted the last trees before I was born. Thank you. I'm sure there are many questions. So just a minute to each of you to respond to what you would like to respond to, and then we will continue communicating during the break. I will start with Natalka Park. It's a very long story, and we will definitely not have enough time, like 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, to talk about it. After the Revolution of Dignity, the understanding of one's impact changed. We had a new head of the district, and we came to him with the suggestions. We said that the project we that was prepared beforehand during Yanukovych cannot be implemented there. No golden fountains, nothing like that. No, this is impossible. We have to listen to the people. Let us try to listen to the people. And we were fighting for it bit by bit. The salons we have there, they didn't want them to have. We didn't want us to have them there, and they wanted people not to sit there. I actually, took away those tables, do not sit on the lawn, personally, because it takes a lot of changes in the heads of the authorities for them to reconsider the approaches to spatial planning and the use of the spaces. Because one thing is just doing that so that it looks nice in the beginning, but the other thing is to make sure that people actually use it. So we talked to them and said, we want to have these lawns where people would be sitting, to have picnics, because, that looked awfully, but people wanted to have some changes around the territory so that it's safe. It wasn't safe. There were some, drug addicts. We collected those syringes and then showed them to the city council. So it was about safety and the possibility to relax, because there's a beautiful place not far from your home. And I think that as a community, we succeeded in preserving it. And it's important that each community has green areas. And this is also our cultural heritage. But when we talk about it, we usually think about architecture, but green territories, this is also our heritage. This is something that will help us endure the changes of climate. And we have to talk about that, and we have to preserve that and multiply that. And that is why the pedestrian routes and the bicycle lanes are created there. It's important to have it. We preserved all the trees that grew in Natalka Park, and that was very important. I would like to say a couple of words in defense of Kropyvnytsky. A day before yesterday, I talked to a teenager who plays baseball and went to Kropyvnytsky, and he said that Kropyvnytsky is the best city in Ukraine, and then Bohuslav is the second. The guy is 14 years old, and he said that you have to go to Kropyvnytsky. And what concerns those changes that have started taking place and the request of the communities. In March 2014, we knew that the Crimea is occupied by Yanukovych fleet, and there was some euphoria. The National Guard was training on Volodymyrsk hill, and I was a young mother, and we went to do some community work there to clean Volodymyrsk hill. And there were people younger than me. I was 29 at the time, and they were like 10 years younger. And they said, we made Yanukovych flee. There's nothing impossible for us. This is our territory. And there was this feeling that it's not something abstract. It's ours. It belongs to us, and we will decide, who is the master of the street. The street belongs to us and not to someone abstract, and we have the right to plant a maple tree, and nobody has the right to log it or something. So we have the right to participate in discussions, and there's a member of Kyiv City Council, Evgenia Kuleba. She unfortunately is not a member of the council anymore, but she was very active in terms of discussion of public spaces organization in Pokrovsk and Kyiv. We have to go to small towns in the east and work with the spaces there as well. There was a great community in Pokrovsk, and I really hope that it will go back to what it was. Just a short comment. about what happened in Kyiv after the Natalka Park. The authorities saw that they can actually do some PR using green spaces, and that's important. Before that, I worked at the landscaping and architectural department there, and we were working on the islands, 39 islands, huge territory, a hectare, mostly forested. There were many ideas how to develop these territories, how to organize recreation there, but it wasn't very interesting to anyone at the time. And then Natalka Park was done, and after that, the municipal enterprise Cave Parks was established. It wasn't that successful. It had its own problems, but this understanding that you can gain political reputation by developing these green areas and parks led to the fact that the authorities started investing into them. And what concerns the eco-path around, along the river, I clicked through some examples we intended to show before that. That's Balkova Nesta. There are many examples. We have like, for example, in Prague, they have 27.5 kilometers of small streams, and they are renewing them because they were under concrete. They are getting rid of this concrete. They are bringing them back to their natural condition because this is a resource for recreation, for people's health. So that's the right thing. And one more thing from me, we still have our workbooks, so please remember to find time to take some notes during the break. If you made notes during the lecture, good job, but you can add something else during the break. Don't forget to indicate your ideas on our boards. And let us thank Daria, Alexander, and Bogdana. Thank you. I have an announcement for those who are going to the shooting.
Дорогі, я сподіваюся, що кожен
Dear friends, I hope that everyone has had a very good lunch. I've noticed that most of you had healthy plates. Well, healthy but big ones. So we have a surprise for you. You know, exercise called Healthy Plate, dedicated to our healthy lunch. So I invite everyone to get up. You may stay seated and move while seated, and please look on the screen. Hi, friends. Eggs, do this, green salad, fish. Ready? Tasty eggs are protein and power. A green salad is colorful. It's a wave. Fish. 1, 2, 3. Move your shoulders, hands up and head down. Smile. Eggs, salad. This plate is our energy. Healthy food for our immunity. 1, 2, 3. Shoulders up, hands down. Smile. Eggs, salad, and juicy fish. This is a healthy plate. Tasty eggs are protein and power. A green salad is a bright wave. Juicy fish is beauty. 1, 2, 3. Shoulders up, hands down. Smile. Eggs, salad. This is our energy. Healthy food for our immunity. 1, 2, 3. Shoulders up, hands down. Smile. Eggs, salad, juicy fish. This is our healthy plate. Thank you for your activity. All ingredients have mixed well in your stomachs now, and we have a short announcement about one additional activity for the morning, and I invite my colleague to tell you what you may be doing tomorrow. Hello, everyone. This is an idea which appeared recently. I'm a physical therapist, but I'm also a licensed Zumba trainer. So if you like moving with music, so we can meet at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Taras will tell you where to register, and I will be happy to see you tomorrow. So after this session, you will see a table, and you will be able to register on the rest. So yoga, Nordic walking, and Zumba. And we are starting the meaningful part of after lunch, and I invite Anastasia Boychuk. Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Boychuk. I'm the head of the TRUE project, the Trauma Rehabilitation for Ukraine, which is one of the Swiss healthcare projects, and it is implemented by the Charity Foundation Patients of Ukraine, together with the Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute and Certified Products Hub. And we invite you to participate in a discussion about inclusion and accessibility to discuss what is needed by those people and families of the people with certain disabilities, with additional special needs, what they need from us and how we can join our efforts and collaborate as a society, as service providers, to help them get back into their communities and integrate back into their communities. Thank you. And I would like to invite Олена Пшенична, Євген Холодницький, and Сергій Худа. So we will first introduce each of our speakers. And then each of them will have a short presentation. And after that, we will have a discussion. So we have Olena Pshenichna with us. She's a writer, a co-founder of the Visible Vidimi public initiative. I've been following you, and as far as I understand, you're doing awareness raising about neurodiverse children and children with disabilities in general. So you represent the community of parents, which is quite large. And we'll be talking about the things you're facing, about your needs, about what works and what doesn't work in Ukraine, what is lacking. We also have Yevgeny Holodnitsky. He is our defender, a veteran. And just as many other veterans, he's getting back, or he has gotten back to active lifestyle after serious injuries. So he will share his experience, what works, what doesn't, and how collaboration is key. And just as believing in yourself and many other things which are the key to getting back on track. And we also have Serhiy Huda with us. He's a physical therapist. He's a member of the All Ukrainian Union of Physical Therapists. And he's the deputy medical director of the Clinical Center of Pediatric Medicine. He's actually in charge of rehabilitation. And I think you may hear from Serhiy today that rehabilitation is not the main thing and not the only one, the only thing people need after trauma, or children and with disabilities and their families. This is also not the most important thing for them. So the question is, what is needed by these people? So let us start with Olena. I have a short presentation. Please show it on the screen. Hello, I'm Olena Pshenichna. And first of all, I would like to thank you for having this discussion today. It's really very important. As I said, told you something about me. I'm a person with multiple identities. I'm a writer and a journalist, but it's not the most important thing today. And I would like to share a different side of my activity today. And it will probably give you a better understanding of what lens I will be looking through at this discussion of us. Together with my husband, we are the co-founders of the Vidimi Visible Parental NGO, and I'm a curator of the network of parental organizations called Spilka, that I'm ambassador of barrier-free environment in education. But what is most important here is I am the mother of Andriy. Andriy is a 7-year-old with autism, and he has the status of a child with disability. And some of these professional aspects I'm dealing with today have appeared because of what we've been living through with Andriy. And thanks to the obstacles we've been facing as a family, we're doing these things. And this is the most important lens I look at the world today at, well, barrier-free services, medical services, and so on. Just briefly about our organization. We are an organization of parents, and we have some key focus areas which we believe it is important to work with so that children like our son have independent future, because everything we do for the sake of the future. We work with education a lot. As a person with media background, I work with awareness raising a lot, because people should hear about these human things, and then people start understanding. And I believe in that. We shape a community of similar families around us, and I in particular, do a lot of advocacy, including legislative changes, because we may have fantastic plans, we may have great ideas, but if the legislation fails to let us implement it in a good way, this will not make any sense. So advocacy is very important. But we are about absolute love and acceptance of the child. We care about the best interest of the child and the family. There are several important things I wanted to tell you in this context. Last year, as an organization, we joined a big public union. This is a network of organizations of parents, which includes almost 50 organizations from 15 regions of Ukraine. And each organization is founded by parents of children with disabilities. So together, we are implementing different projects aimed at advocacy, because I believe that multiple voices are better than one. So a single voice, no matter how strong it is, will not be heard as well as multiple voices. So I now have an honor to speak on behalf of our community, not as just Olena Pshenichna, who is a mother, but who is a mother and a part of a big community of parents. My husband sometimes asks, when will we have a quiet life? But it will probably never happen, because I'm also an ambassador of the network for accessibility in education, because education is very important for a child, and everything that can be done in terms of barrier-free education is very important, and I'm doing whatever I can in this respect. And there's the last slide of mine. I wanted to explain to you why it is important for me to be here with you today and to have this discussion, because when you have a sincere and honest dialogue, and it seems like we can have one here today, so these dialogues result in solutions. And when we speak about honest intersectoral dialogue, this is not where solutions and decisions only are shaped, but it also helps lay the foundation for new policies and practices in communities. And that is why it is a big honor for me to be here with you, together with my colleagues, and to speak about these topics. Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Yevgeny. He has a short video about himself. Please play the video. This is a video with prosthesis showing how to eat. So at that time, I still had some hopes that I will be able to do something with that prosthesis, but it didn't work. It's very inconvenient to eat with the bionic prosthesis. I have a thing like this. This is for those who think that somebody feeds me 3 times a day. No, nobody feeds me with a spoon. I can eat myself.
Це мій основний допоміжний інструмент.
This is my main helping tool in almost everything. I can use a spoon, a fork, a pen to sign something. I can pay for groceries I buy. There's also a torch. So I don't need to use a prosthesis. Everything is done by this watch. This is my personal individual experience. I have found this tool for myself. Some people use other tools, but for me, this watch does the thing.
Ви мене змушуєте ніяковіти.
This feels awkward. Well, before I pass the floor to Serhiy, I would like to explain why we invited Olena and Yevhen for this discussion, because it seems like these are very different groups of people needing support in Ukraine. A defender with amputations and a family of a neurodivergent child. But we, as representatives of a rehabilitation project, which deals with rehabilitation, wanted to show you that the needs are very individualized for everyone, and there are no universal solutions. There are no universal approaches, and the things that may seem obvious may be actually not the things a family or a person needs. So you can see the example of Yevhen. So something people are talking about so much, like prosthesis, this is not what is needed. You need some solutions which will help you adapt to your everyday life, some tools to do that. But it doesn't have to be something everybody is talking about. And any solutions have to be found together with a person, depending on their needs, and not based on some patterns or state programs, because what Olena mentioned, that one of the main areas of your activity is the improvement of legislation and amendment of the legislation, because it's not perfect. It may have something that seems great to us, something that is well financed. For example, there are some resolutions on some rehabilitation programs from the Ministry of Social Protection, or also the Ministry of Social Policy supports the programs for prosthesis provision, but it's not always the thing that is necessary. So how do we define what is needed, and who do we work with to understand this? This is what Serhiy will tell us about very briefly, but I think that he will tell us that an expert in rehabilitation is only one of those who is needed by the family and people. Because while developing rehabilitation, we believe that the format of this summer school is very important, because we are not alone here, because rehabilitation cannot exist in a vacuum. It cannot exist in detachment from everything else, and cannot develop separately from other services provided in healthcare and in other areas. Today in the morning, I heard from one of the specialists in rehabilitation that it's great to be in the environment where you have people out from, not only from the rehabilitation circle, but people from different areas connected to health. And now I'm passing the floor to Serhiy. Hello, everyone. I was thinking a lot about, how to tell about myself and what I do, so I prepared a short video to show you the context.
Lose you, 'cause it's not that complicated. When you love someone, you tell them that you do. Don't waste a second or a breath. You don't know when you're gonna lose them. Now they're gone, but you didn't make that call, and now you live with your regrets because it's all your fault. So it breaks my heart that I let you leave. Hurts my head seeing memories of you. There ain't a thing I wouldn't do to get a moment back with you. So it breaks my heart that I let you leave. Been so hard learning how to grieve for you. I should've let you know the truth. 'Cause when you love someone, you tell them that you do.
I'm a physical therapist, and that's not what only I do. We have an entire team, quite a big team. I would like to start with saying that this is not just a presentation. This is what I do every day in a public hospital. I've been working since 2019. And when I became a physical therapist, I thought that it was very easy and it's so cool. My task is to help a child to move and to be discharged from the hospital. However, with each new case, new child, and new family, I realized how wrong I was. This is only part of what I have to do. This is not the entire process as I imagined it. This is why now, together with my team, great specialists, also great colleagues of mine, I have an opportunity to be part of the team developing child rehabilitation. We are working on professional standards, provision of services, clinical guidelines development to contribute to the system and to change approaches. If you really want to have good recovery, hospital is only part of the process. A lot of time is needed, and generally speaking about recovery, a lot of time is spent at home, in community. That is why this panel is exactly about this aspect, about the importance of partnerships, and I hope that we will generate and communicate many interesting ideas. Thank you, Serhiy. So we have introduced ourselves, and I think that we can start our conversation now. Olena, let's start with you again. What are the barriers that you face, the obstacles? From your personal experience of your family, what is lacking and what works well? What helped you to find solutions to build a system that you needed? What do you encounter daily as a leader of this parents' union advocating inclusion of children into educational processes, them living together with their families inclusively, not living in separate institutions as it was back in the day? Thank you for this question, and I think that yes, it can take me the entire day to discuss it, unfortunately. In terms of barriers, I would like to start with an informational barrier, and I will elaborate on that shortly. When we have a child born, or when we learn about a diagnosis of our child, we do not receive any knowledge about what we do with this situation, how do we deal with that. There are no guidelines, and we do not know that there are different fields, that there are some evidence-based approaches, but some of them are not. We are totally unaware of all of that. But this is my experience, of course. This is what I'm sharing with you right now. When you learn about a diagnosis of your child, you become very small and you feel at a loss. You really want somebody to be taken care of by an adult person who will lead you and tell you that this is what we do first and this is what we do second, and then you will do this thing, and then you will understand all of that, well, cognitively, you will accept it with your heart, and this is the way for you to grow up. Yes, you will have an understanding of what to do next and of how to be a parent. And it's great when it is somebody from your community who can assume this role of this adult figure. And I always promote the idea that it's so important to be supported in a community. Whenever you have your first contact in the system of education, healthcare, social protection, you learn about something when it's no longer needed. We learned as a family that we can have early intervention when it was no longer relevant, because in the past there was no adult who would have told us about that. And I felt so better, that when I learned about that as a pilot project, we have early intervention. It's not part of a regular service, but still it existed. Several years ago, we learned that IPR in education and healthcare are two different things. That is why when these individual programs of development, and all families need, especially when it all starts, when you receive a diagnosis and it's a new reality for your family, it's critical to have professional, empathic, responsible, professional adult. It could be somebody from a community, it could be a speech therapist, a doctor, the head of their individual rehabilitation center. To have this information, we talked to Serhiy, and we realized that sometimes you receive lots of information and you don't know how to apply it because there is no explanation, and you feel like you're drowning in all of this information. And it's also extremely important that when in our life of parents, we do not have the presence of such an adult figure, very often we step on the wrong path, which is not evidence-based. And do you sometimes feel like being manipulated? Yes, because you feel lost, you're so small. The only thing that you want is your child to become normal. Well, quote unquote, right? Because you really want your child to be the way you see your child and you want them to be. And when you do not have this professional evidence-based knowledge, you are happy to take any path, any pathway where they promise that there will be some magic pill for you, but you lose a lot of time. And then you will be back and it will be evidence-based pathway because that's the only way to be, but you lose so much time meanwhile. It's an honest conversation. So I would like also to say that it's so important the way this communication is communicated to you, because you can hear that, well, you have a child like that, so what do you want to do? Or when you hear that, Mom, what do you want? You lost so much time. You can hear many different things. You will not work with this professional anymore, and you will not want to be part of the system. That's why it's so important to have communication which is not judgmental, which is really helpful. It helps us to overcome these barriers. Recently, I received a request to develop an informational product for a group of specialists. How to build connections with parents who have children with disabilities. And then I asked about the key request that they have, what's the objective. And the objective was how to say no to parents, not have to provide information to them. It was not about supporting them. It was about saying no to them when you cannot deliver something. And I think that that's another barrier. I don't know what to call it. Is it about your attitude or information provision? But this is such a great difficulty that we face daily. There could be many more barriers like that, but if we never counter the first one related to information and attitude, I would single out these two as the most important ones. Sometimes we never reach what follows. I also know that Evgeny was nodding when you answered this question. The information barrier, let's dwell on that. Evgeny, from your perspectives, information, access to information, information overload, have you experienced something like that? The first weeks after my injury, I was thinking only about prosthetics, and I didn't receive any additional information about that. So I would not say that I had some excessive information. I just knew that I would receive prosthetics. And about this magic pill, many combatants really want to have prosthetics, and this is an individual case, but not everyone needs this solution. They also spend a lot of time on something that they will not use, that is not applicable. They lose an opportunity to adapt to the conditions that they will be in when they are discharged from fantastic rehabilitation centers tailored to their need. Well, not all of them, of course, have such conditions. For 3 years, some of my comrades, they are changing these rehab centers from one to another, posting great videos. For 3 years, I've been living at home, and I do my own thing, and it's important. When you lose a limb, it does not really mean that you need to spend months and years to have a prosthetic limb, but instead of that, you can try and find an alternative. Sometimes it's possible. You can also say no to something. I don't want to have $100,000 spent on knowing how to do my shoelaces and to spend a month on learning how to do that. It's about how realistic our plan is. I also have a comment. Ksenia Karbowska, I'm a founder of Mosaic network of schools. I heard about the information barrier, and this is what I also hear a lot from parents, that what works for one child does not work for another child. We can find a solution to both of these programs through an app or a chatbot, because the topic of rehabilitation was also this. I know of a startup that was presented in the US. It was the US call, and they had the call to with a startup, and the Ukrainian who participated in this call could not prove that it is needed for great numbers of people. So when you have these veteran centers and the rehab part, it can give a result, because the startup was about the importance of prosthetics, when it works, when it doesn't, what is the information needed, not needed. And when I heard your stories, like it could be an app on the one hand, and there is a user. That would be good to connect these projects. On the other hand, I was also thinking about having an information chat box, but well, it didn't happen because I was busy with other projects. So I think that would be really great for us to have a chat box with information needed to find answers to requests that people have. I received my injury at the end of 2023, and it's much better now, especially about rehabilitation and, well, prosthesis. I don't know about any chatbots like that where you have all the information consolidated, but if it's about prosthetics, well, there are some platforms where you can learn a lot of information. Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting what I wanted to say. I also would like to build on what you said. In our wording, we use this term of the area of prosthetics. It means that we impose a solution already. Olana, Yevgeny, through their examples, show that what is on surface is not always what is actually needed. Rehabilitation, prolonged stay in rehabilitation centers, trying to find a good rehab center, trying to find a specialist, also, well, a prosthetic limb, what is the best one for you to have? How can we overcome the information barrier, Olana, that you talked about, and what is the best way for us to organize services, care, help, which is community-based? Yes, I just want to say something before I forget it. I'm sorry, it slipped away again. Usually I provide several cases. I say that it's really important to actually do the same thing as we do as families. I remember the conversation that we had with our communities, and I asked, where can we find this information about social services? And the answer that I received is the website of the department. And then I say, okay, but when we received a diagnosis, it's our case or any other families, the last thing I was thinking about was the website of the department. I was not even thinking about departments and their websites and their sections that they have there. And it's not easy to understand where to find this information because it's not very obvious. Also, you do not update this information. Try to engage some people. How can you overcome barriers? You can involve the users, veterans, parents with children with disabilities, representatives of other groups, communities, and try to have the same experience as they have, where they interact with the system and at what point they can have access to the information. Another question is the language. Whether it is user-friendly, not too formal, not just having the number of the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers, then you go to the website, you read the intro, the preamble, and you stop there. But instead of that, you can have one card with infographics. And it's not at the on the website of the department that you need to find it, but different entry points for families when they enter different systems. It could be on the desk of the specialists from the inclusive resource centers. And it has to be one question only that is reflected on that card, because in the brochure you will have many issues discussed. So try to see it through our eyes. In what way we interact with different systems, how it works for us, and where this information is needed. This is one of the ideas. Another one is localizing it. Of course, sometimes you need to have a universal solution, like a chatbot, but we have different capacity for communities. And we speak about families which are part of community. And in this community, you will have only this set of services, and this is the only capabilities that they have. And sometimes, yes, when you feel so small and you feel lost, it's important that you have information from this adult and you have context, the context of Mary, and this is how you find her because you are a parent who is in need. I know that when we talk about families with children with disabilities, a map, the pathway for the child with a disability in a different community, Brovary community. And what is your community? My community is Kyiv community. Yes, we understand that that's a challenge then. But in any community, it's very important to have a localized approach. It's much more useful than having loads of paper used. Okay, information, leaflets, which is meant for all the communities of the country.
І така
You need localized information because it gives you the understanding of where to go. So these are the two paths I see. Did your community hear you? Well, we're in the process. Thank you for the information. I'm Valeria Kotovska, and I'm working with early intervention Apostolivska community. And we have informed the kindergartens well, and if necessary, then the kindergarten teachers recommend parents to go to us, tell them about our services, about our experts, and we also have worked with pediatricians at hospitals, and I think it's very important because it's the pediatrician who actually defines the diagnosis, but also, well, refers what to do further. Well, this is the example of what I've mentioned. When this information is in the places where you actually need it. Is it the response to what Elena said? All right. I just would like to reflect on that. My name is Oksana Boyko, and I also have a child with disability. Quite recently, well, a couple of months ago, my child turned 18 already, and I work at the Department of Social Policy, which actually provides social services. And on our website, we have the respective information. And what is more, this information is also in my head, and I know very clearly what to do. But unfortunately, well, my child had this acute state at 3 and 4, and then it repeated at 17. And I've been working in this department, but when this acute state happened, I was not a professional anymore. So all this information, I just blanked on that information. You just go to a hospital and that's it. You don't know what to do, although generally I know what to do, but not at that moment. And those 6 months, that year, is very difficult. You don't know what to do, and it's very good when there are people close to you who have a clear understanding of the information, and they call you and they tell you, do this or do that, and tell you that for several times, 10 times, 20 times, until you actually do that. So, yes, you need someone to be close to you and someone to deal with that, because even if you are in that area, at that moment you cannot deal with that. Evgeny? Well, I will speak more about prosthesis. I think I should start from the end. Well, the most frequent question on social media is where are your prosthesis and why don't you use them? People think that I just, had some problems with the prosthesis or something. And the thing is that the society believes that if you have no limbs, you just get a prosthesis and then your life gets back to normal. And it's very difficult to work with this, because the expectations from upper limb expectations are exaggerated. You may see nice videos on social media where a person with the hand prosthesis is drinking coffee and moving their fingers, and that's it. But this is not the reality, unfortunately. And I personally haven't found them that useful. This is my experience and the experience of my friends with similar ones. And I understand that huge resources are spent on something that is not needed. I have prosthesis at home worth $60,000, but I cook on the floor using electric stove. So I understand that people need an alternative. Let those prostheses cost millions of hryvnias, but it would be wise to give people choice. To those who understand, I don't need a prosthesis, but I don't have proper conditions at home. I need robot that would be sweeping the floor. Because the mechanic prosthesis I received a couple of weeks ago cost 400,000 to the state. I could have bought a washing machine, a robot vacuum cleaner, and equipped my bathroom. At that cost. There are people who are using the prosthesis very actively, but that percentage of people who don't need them will decrease the load on the system, and the experts will also have more time to deal with those who really need those prostheses, especially when we speak about the lower limb prosthesis. Then this money can be spent on the everyday needs of the person, because if the person can equip their home in a proper way, they will have fewer things to care about in the house, and they will have fewer problems because of the absence of the limbs. And while the person is spending months and years on rehabilitation connected with prosthetics, it actually makes this person not participate in life for a long period of time. Just a moment. Yevgeny will touch the topic which we have been working on a lot, and I wanted to ask Olena to say a couple of words on that topic as well, because in Ukraine, we have many different programs providing support, and there are many services. When we communicate or when we look for information on social media, we can see that everything is great, especially when you look at information provided by the ministries. On the other hand, people write that everything is very bad, nobody thinks about anyone, and that's the end of the world. But actually, these are two extremes, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. We do have something, but it's not perfect, it's not fit for everyone, and we have to talk about it honestly, just as Yevgeny did, and to think about the things that could be changed. And I suspect that there are things which Olena is facing as well, the things that do exist, but they are not what people need, or they are not suitable for everyone. Maybe some programs or something. Maybe Olena could comment on that. I will start, and I will ask Serhiy to continue, because this is our favorite topic when we meet. Once I was asked, Olena, do you use Resolution 309? Could you explain what this resolution is about for the audience? This is a resolution claiming that our child has the right to have a course of rehabilitation treatment. It used to be a program dedicated to rehabilitation in one state clinic, Kozialkin Clinic, located here in Truskavece. I was asked whether we use it, and I said no. And the person talking to me had a facial expression which explained to me that I'm ungrateful because the state offers it to me, and I'm an ungrateful mother, and I don't use the things that I'm provided with. This is the same as prosthesis in Evgeny's case, because, well, somebody has an idea of what my child needs, but parents know their children well, and the veterans know what they need. And our child is autistic, so they have some sensory troubles, behavioral troubles. This child doesn't need rehabilitation. He doesn't need it. And then it turns out that we have to use the thing that he doesn't need. We will spend his time and our time, which is very valuable. At the same time, we could, well, spend this time just having a walk in the rain and, well, kind of supporting the sensory hunger he has. And then we talked to Serhiy about it. We found that there is this pain point, which is common for us. And then I started talking to parents of children with autism. We have a big community there. We have, well, there are also parents of children with Down syndrome. So I started asking them, do you use this resolution? And I realized that in most cases, especially when we talk about the parents of children with autism, they use this program just as an opportunity to go somewhere from home and to network with parents like them. But then it's not rehabilitation, and he will continue because he can talk a lot about this. Well, to be honest, I don't even know what to say. I have so many reflections on everything that's been said, on communication, on different formats of help. And I've been sitting here and listening, and I do agree that we have issues with communication. But I think we also have this common problem that a lot is supported by the hospitals, but very little is focused on people. People are rarely asked whether they actually need something. And when it comes to the, well, prosthetics, a lot depends on communication. And a lot depends on what you're saying, how you're saying that, and whether you need to say what you would like to say at the moment, because it doesn't mean that people are ready to accept this information, and that's okay, because sometimes there's too much of this information, and figuring out what you need among all the chaos of this information is not easy. Among my colleagues and also in my community on social media, I advocate for the SPACS protocol. You may have heard about it. So how do we communicate? What should be the environment here? Because if I stand in the corridor or my colleagues stand somewhere in the hall and share some information to 200 people, well, this is not okay, even if I'm telling some valuable things. If I'm telling this to the parents, to a mother or a father, but the child is running around us and trying to get some things they shouldn't be getting, this is not also the right moment for communication. Or if a representative of a prosthesis company is approaching a defender right after the amputation. Yes, so very few questions are asked about the needs. Well, at some points you think about different things, especially when you're with an injury in the hospital. You think about your family, about your work, about your brothers in arms. So talk to this person, ask about their background, about their occupation before the war. Do they need a bionic prosthesis to just, well, stir sugar in their coffee? Or maybe this person needs to do something with their hands and to do it quickly and, well, qualitatively, because nobody will just put on this prosthesis to stir your coffee. It has to be functional. It has to be for this person. It has to be for a particular person, and we have to focus on that. But we're talking about collaboration, and collaboration with different experts on rehabilitation, maybe pediatricians, educators, maybe. And working with rehabilitation, do you see the need in communication between experts in different fields? Rehabilitation does not exist in a vacuum. It cannot be effective if it's separated. And I think Olena will get us back to Resolution 309. I remember that you have a question. We'll get back to that. Thank you for your question. I think it's a very good question because somehow we divide it into some stages, but it all has to be in parallel. What do you mean? So, for example, if we speak about families and children, education should not continue after the child is released from the hospital. So we have to provide educational services in healthcare facilities, and we have this in the rehabilitation packages. If we speak about civilians or military who are going back home, they have to go back home with the possibility to live, to participate in life, and we have to think about going back to work, not at the moment somebody is released from the hospital, or at least to being able to do some everyday things at home. This is something we have to think about immediately, because our main task is not doing some fantastic things. It's bringing a person back to their life, the life they had before the injury, before the trauma. That's the point of rehabilitation. If we speak about going back home, it's not just opening the door and crossing the threshold. This may be school, this may be work, this may be hobbies. For some people, this is the ability to actually get into the apartment on a wheelchair, for example. Yes, I agree with you. You know, when I just gather the history of the patient, I always ask them, what floor do you live in? And when people say it's the 3rd or the 4th floor, I ask, is it a new building or an old one? Because usually these low buildings do not have an elevator, and I understand that we have to approach this matter differently. And this is also a question about the community, because the role of the community is very often underestimated, but the community has to be involved. Olena, if you don't mind, a participant wanted to ask a question here. Thank you. Well, the first question I have, this is a question to Yevgeny. At what stage did you understand that it's better not to use a prosthesis? So what I mean, so you have an injury, then there's the period of acute rehabilitation. So, and then you went back home. So when did you realize that it's more comfortable for you to use prosthesis? So when I put the prosthesis on for the first time, so in the first week after the injury, you are absolutely helpless. You're fed, you're dressed, and so on. And as soon as I started moving and learned how to eat, I came up with this idea of a bracelet with a magnet to learn to eat. I learned to get dressed. And then when I got the prosthesis, I was taught to, put the, cubes, from one place on the table to another. And I realized, I can do everything in my household myself without this prosthesis. And you're teaching me how to, get hold of an object on the table. So I don't need that. So you were already at home and then you went back to the hospital. I will explain why I am asking these things. Because there are many people like you who are now on the same path. So maybe we could change this patient pathway, because I work in a rehabilitation department with the military, and that's why it's interesting for me to know at what stage should we be solving these problems. That was back in the hospital. So at the hospital was the time when you realized you don't need it. Yes, when I got the prosthesis, I was still in the hospital. I tried using prosthesis and I realized that I can do better without it. And the question is how much effort I should attach to learn to use it and how to, some things may be more simple because it's not convenient to turn your key in the door with the prosthesis. And the same goes about many other actions. So you need to just to think about it, and you will find a better solution than learning to do everything with the prosthesis, because these prostheses we have, they are the top of what the technologies can offer, and you cannot do more. Could you have refused from the prosthesis at that point? Yes, I did have this possibility, but I was actually hoping that this bionic prosthesis will restore my functionality by 90%. 90% is just like a healthy hand without the small finger, and not what it actually is. And another question about the everyday life at home. Did any organization help you equip your home? Because we have a patient with amputation of lower limbs and upper limb, and he's also lost his sight, and we are now helping him to equip his home in the proper way. So that's why I'm asking whether you got any help, or did you have any information about the organizations that could help you or not?
Не говорили.
No, it was not discussed in the facility. It's not easy to have this household set up before you are back, because you need to identify the needs. Well, if it's about vision loss, it's different. But actually, yes, when I was back home, I understood that I can open the door. This one I can do, but this handle is not convenient for me. Then you understand that this one will fit the need. I think it's more about the patient. It's a customized approach, actually. But yes, no, I cannot say that you're left alone, because there is experience of people who already gained this experience. And I also have a question to you. What about the patient that you have? Is he from this region? No, from a neighboring region. He's been with us for 1 year already, and we are trying to find some services to help. He lives on the 2nd floor. But there will be more and more patients like that. Yes, thank you for sharing this case. And what is the facility that you represent? The Ternopil Regional Hospital. Is that psychiatric? No, it's the regional hospital. This is a classical example, actually, that you raised right now, or a classical problem that we experience. This is also what Olena brought up. It's important to have localized services. Because if we take Yevgeny and what you say, in what way can we understand what the person will need when they are back at home, for them to be back home and to get settled? And your patient is not even from the same region. It means that he should be in the same hospital as the region that he lives in. For him to adapt faster and to be discharged sooner, working with occupational therapists, you can test how it works. Well, it's not ready yet, the place for him to stay. It was discussed with his family. This is firstly. And secondly, you had this question to Eugenii, at what point he realized that he didn't really benefit from the prosthetic limb. Well, We work together with the Prosthetics Hub, and we have peer-to-peer consultations there. We have information dissemination, which is also peer-to-peer. When we see representatives of different prosthetics manufacturing businesses, they come to us with different solutions, and very often these are the most expensive alternatives for us. And to see an alternative, because it's not one way only that it's the only solution that you can use, but to say that just put things on hold, try to just think about it, try brushing your teeth on your own, independently, getting dressed. It's important to have consultations like that. I know that the channel Makina, the advisor to the president on accessibility, has been working a lot on rehabilitation and habilitation of such patients who lost their vision. So we can exchange the context after this panel, but I know that Prosthesis Hub can also help, because we can find a consultant there. That will be peer-to-peer cooperation, and they can find somebody to come to your facility from time to time. Yes, I understand, because you say that this is just a waste of money, but when we discharge a patient, we need to understand what happens next. I understand that it's better to channel the funding there, but it's important to have legislation for people to understand what kind of alternatives are offered to them. But I absolutely agree with you. Evgeny shared some statements, and I wanted to say, yes, Olana, there is some background noise. I would kindly ask you to close the door. And those of you who feel like chatting, yes, we can do that, but not now probably, because we would like to have the conversation with our panelists. Evgeny said that he was obsessed with the idea. It sounded so romantic to have this silver bullet cure-it-all solution, and this is exactly how we feel sometimes, that there is this promise and we hold dearly to it. It could be about, well, private service providers, public service providers, and this romanticization of a service or successful cases. It could be a distracting factor, and it could result in a waste of time. I don't know a solution to that, but I know that it is also present in our solution. And Evgeny said that, I could do this and that, but then with a prosthetic limb, I could do very little. The resolution that I mentioned, I know that my son should learn how to ride a bicycle because it will help them a lot. But the state says that we need to do something absolutely different, and it will take a lot of time for us to get there. Or I know that it's important for my son to learn how to make a sandwich, to cut bread, and to live together with other children, to learn how to do that, because maybe there will be assisted living for him. And they tell me that no, you need to have a course of massages. That is why this resolution 309 means that, yes, there is an elephant in the room, and we call it rehabilitation. Yes, that is the rehabilitation that some patients need, and yes, we have public funds for that, but sometimes we have replacement of concepts. This is some respite, having relaxation, but what about the social component? Because they will need it later. It's important to focus on a person and their real need. And evidence-based approach, yes, this is the bedrock. This is the foundation for us. It is critical for us not to stray away. And it's important to see a person, not a diagnosis. Sergey, before we had this conversation, mentioned that we have a standard. It is a guideline for children, for neurodivergent children. And there, what do you have there? A psychiatrist, You know, that's the first time I learned about that. It's news to me. Yes, we have guidelines as of 2015. These are clinical guidelines, not rehabilitation, but general guidelines. Now we already have separate rehabilitation guidelines and standards, but there is a block of rehabilitation, and it is the information that you may find in guidelines. So the process of rehabilitation could be run by a psychiatrist, and you don't we understand that this is not the format that we need because we focus on the need. There has to be a framework. And about the evidence base, we also need to have a framework there. It is an extremely sensitive topic, and I will try to be open with you. That's who I am. There are so many manipulations that we have around it. I think back of the times when we developed clinical guidelines for children with cerebral palsy. Believe me, there was such a backlash. I understand it's about money of other people, and I basically, well, I don't take it away from their pocket, but I, like Robin Hood, I give it back to people. But also it is about time. It's not about money per se. The point is that there are some limits when we understand that, yes, we understand that we are running out of time. So we, there are some time limits within which we can make max progress. Just imagine, yes, we all know how to walk. And if I will try, not everyone can walk. Okay, I'm sorry, apologies. But if I try to teach you to walk in a different way, it's so difficult because we are used to our patterns. In terms of children, they grow, they develop, their brain grows. We have certain windows of opportunities. And when we waste the time for development of those things which are needed, well, sometimes we do it consciously, unconsciously. It varies. However, let's be aware of us sometimes taking the time of these families and wasting it. So let's focus on what actually helps. Time is extremely valuable. We as a patient organization observe it not only in a children population, but patients who survived the stroke, also patients with other conditions, when they have spinal cord injuries, when they have bad lesions, bad sores. Also for veterans, time is critical. Time is extremely valuable. Yevhen, you also mentioned that you have some comrades who have been spending years in the rehab centers. Well, we call it rehabilitation tourism, and they stay in these healthcare facilities, in these units. They do not go back home. They lose time, because we know that time is the foundation of everything for rehabilitation. I think it's about your comfort zone also. If you're military, not military, if you find yourself in a nice setting when you are fat, you don't have any household chores or worries, and you feel great, but you will be back home in the same conditions that you were in before. Well, it's not that you are only wasting time, but actually you are taking the place of those people who actually have the need. And this is not a good thing for me. I understand why people do that, but after 5 months, I really wanted to get discharged and I really wanted to go home. I did not want to stay there and to relax. I really wanted to go back home and to live my life. Yes, thank you for being so courageous, sharing all of that with us. I also wanted to add here, for a family, it is important to keep living, just to be parents to your child, regardless of the diagnosis. Very often we live with the feeling of guilt. Have we done enough? Are we doing enough? Is that something that we do not do? And people do this, so maybe I should also try that. And it's a crazy marathon with the child. A child becomes a prisoner of rehabilitation, development procedures, is referred from one professional to another one, but you don't do the most important thing, you don't live meanwhile. So let's not forget that when we work with families, let's not amplify this feeling that they already have. A child is for love, to live lives with our children. This is what matters, and it takes time to come to terms with that. And there was another thing, but it was the resolution 309 again that you wanted to refer to. No, not the resolution. Apologies. We speak about something that is not obvious and evident. We say that rehabilitation is not always needed, or sometimes is not needed in a hospital setting. It is needed where a person lives. So the result of this conversation, the way I see it, I would really like us to have joint advocacy and to have some legislative changes. The resolution 309, we keep referring about it. This is the budget program of the Ministry for Social Policy, Rehabilitation of Children. But I know that parents' community knows what they need most. Also, in terms of what Yevgeny said, prostheses and having them, this is not always what we need, and sometimes we don't need it. Sometimes we need different solutions. That is important to have a choice, at least to have a choice, to have alternatives, because yes, a prosthetic limb is an element of assistive technologies. These solutions that you can use to adapt the space, there are different adaptive solutions as well. That is why prosthesis is only one of these solutions. We know what Yevgeny uses: smartphone, his smartwatch. However, refitting the kitchen, the car, when you enter your apartment, your workspace, adjusting all of that, these are all elements. Oftentimes, we do not have a choice, and that goes for a parents' community, the resolution 309, but not only limited by the resolution. The same goes for the defenders. So it seems that, yes, they receive so much, and it's really awesome what they get. However, these solutions lack flexibility. They are not matching the need that we have from the perspective of the content and place. Resolution 309, sometimes it's so far away that you need to travel to receive a service. This is not a community-based approach. Or the rehabilitation centers that you mentioned, right? That you have a patient. This is not a community-based service. This is not some service that you can receive at home. There is a study which shows that the more time you spend in rehabilitation, there happens a moment when it gets much more difficult for the person psychologically to go back home, to be employed again, or to participate in an educational process because they develop fears. It was so important for me that I do not forget that when you said advocacy, I remembered what I wanted to say. There is this period when you feel small and at a loss and you need an adult. But then another period, another thing happens. This point when you need to grow up and your agency, your active participation. It works for families, it works for the veteran community. It's so important for us. We need to become participants of intersectoral cooperation and processes. When we do not declare our need, or when we do not say what is not working from what we are offered, that in what way other stakeholders can learn about that. Sometimes I say to parents, if it's not working, tell that it's not working, and they say, okay, but they will strip us away from what we already have. So maybe it's better to have at least something than to have something that we have no idea about. Well, partially, yes, but then it's not getting any better. When we say we, I mean parents, I mean veterans, I mean the representatives of all kinds of groups. It's important for us to have our say, to have our agency, to actively participate in these processes which result in different changes, legislative changes, changes in communities. I'm an ambassador, and I say how important it is to be proactive and to participate actively instead of complaining all the time.
Дякую. Так і є.
Thank you. You're right. In fact, each of you here shows this by doing what you're doing. That's why I'm suggesting. So let's 309, 321, and 518. We can find something else, and also this clinical guidelines that he mentioned, dated 2015. So this is the minimum program. Any questions remaining? When listening to Yevgeny, I recalled a friend of mine who was also given a bionic prosthesis. And most of the time, this prosthesis is just laying somewhere. I just thought it was about my friend, that he's unique in a way. And now I have listened to Yevgeny, and I realized that this is a bigger story. It's like a bigger story. It's like asking the cook why he's not using a perforator. So this is just a helping tool. My vacuum cleaner robot, which costs 5,000 hryvnias, is much more useful because, well, if you have a prosthesis but you have to sweep the floor, well, it doesn't make things any easier. So we have to simplify things, not make them more difficult. The communication actually, makes you think. Makes your expectations much bigger. I would like to tell you a short story. There was a guy who had identical injuries, and I talked to him in the hospital. And then a year has passed. He's already, driving a car. He's an ambassador of a coffee brand. He's shooting at a shooting range. He went back home. He didn't remain in the rehabilitation centers. He got a mechanic prosthesis. He didn't get a bionic prosthesis, and I'm not sure he wants to get one. He made his own conclusions about that, so he decided to wait and adapt. So he's got it. He's adapted, and he keeps living. A prosthesis is not the only solution. Actually, there are so many alternatives. As a representative of the patient community, we sometimes find it quite difficult when working with defenders or with the group supporting the defenders or with parents of the children with disabilities. It's difficult to communicate and to communicate some things in the right way, that what is on the surface, what is advertised, what somebody wants to sell you, like in the case of prosthesis, this is not always the right solution. And I know that our partners from Prosthesis Hub are criticized a lot for that because they are very open and honest about that. Real experts on rehabilitation and the other experts in healthcare face the problem that various marketing campaigns have worked very well, and it's very difficult to destroy this barrier of expectations a person has. So this is a matter of cooperation and the ability to communicate the evidence base together, but also organize the communication in a sensitive way so that you can communicate the things in the right way so that, well, you don't scare people. And then critical thinking for all of us as citizens of Ukraine, well, donate your money to drones, not prosthesis. Because drones are preventing prosthesis. Electronic warfare, this is what prevents injuries that require prosthesis. If there are some solutions, some technologies in Ukraine, this has to be tested by the community of users, families of clients and patients, and this has to be dealt with by the community experts in Ukraine. We do have these experts. It's not like we're only starting on this way. We have a lot. So the support of communities, both professional communities, patient communities, and parental communities are important, and their interaction is the key here. Thank you. We are concluding, so I expect each of you to, make a kind of a final conclusion. I'll be very brief. I've been thinking about whether we can find a formula which would actually help organize this intersectoral collaboration. So talking about children, if we, regardless of who we are, whether we are experts, parents, NGOs, the state, if we all focus on the child and the needs of this child, if we realize that the child's needs may change depending on the changes in their condition and on their age, the need may be one today and there may be a different need tomorrow, we have to be ready for that. If our joint vision is independent and full-fledged life and not the limits of powers, who owes what to whom, who will say what. But if we focus on helping the child learn, live independently, this is the best formula. This sounds as a utopia, but I don't know any other solution to make it really happen. Thank you, Yevgeny. I would add the hard truth to this utopia. This is also true, but I keep saying, sooner or later, we all will be using the services we are shaping ourselves. And when I think about my department or rehabilitation, I ask myself a simple question. Would I want to get support like this? And this question actually helps me continue. We all know about dashboards, we know about statistics, we know what is happening, how it is happening, why it is happening, but unfortunately, we have certain statistical data. We fall ill, we get older, no matter how much we would like or wouldn't like to get older, and that's okay. Of course, not everyone will have a stroke or a heart attack, but we need to have their services, and if we will organize them in a way that we ourselves would like to have them, that would change. This is very romantic, I know, but I know many people like sanatoriums. Yes, I will also say a very simple thing. With some traumas, with some amputations, well, this is something that you may get any time, and you will have to learn to live with that. You will not have any other option, no matter how you try to make a solution. Sometimes you just have to adapt to that and keep living your life. Then, while spending the rest of your life trying to find something you don't even know whether it exists. And this is not only about war-related injuries. Anything may happen even in your everyday life. We just have to accept it. I have realized that, yes, okay, I don't have a hand, but I keep living. And then it gets easier. Thank you. Thank you very much. I was very worried when I suggested this format of the discussion, but I hope that it was good. Okay, Сергій Худа, Євгеній Холодницький, Олена Пшеничка, Анастасія Бойчук. Applause to them. You can take your seats. So we've had a very interesting panel, which made us think a lot. So for you not to lose the ideas you have come up with during the session, please take out your workbooks and put down one or two important ideas. You have a whole minute or a minute and a half to do so.
Так, я бачу, що майже всі дописали.
I hope everyone has finished, and now I will let you know about our next steps. So we are now shaping 9 teams. You will understand how in a minute. After shaping these 9 teams, each team will meet, and during that meeting, you will have to get acquainted with each other, remind everyone of your names because you will be working together from 4:45 to 6:30. This is the time for our quest. You also can share some experience of similar events if you have it. Take pictures together so that you remember who else is on your team. And after you get acquainted with people on your team, I will invite Mr. Alexander Slepchenko here, and he will give instructions. It will be the